Hi, welcome to Racehouse with me, Joe Lee.
And me, Darren Reeves.
Belgian Grand Prix 2024. It's the last race of this, well, before the summer break, really. And it's been a crazy, crazy season so far. So many races. And we're expecting another Verstappen win. Or were we? It was a crazy race. So much pit stop strategy, I felt, Darren, for this one. I thought it was a fantastic race. There was so much unpredictability about who was going to win this one.
It's basically this is 2024 Formula One, and it's just getting better and better and better. Belgium has only sprung up everything this weekend. We've had dry weather on Friday, rain like you wouldn't believe in qualifying. And then we have a really, really sunny race today. I don't think the temperatures were that hot, but the sun was really out. And I know all weekend they've been saying the cooler temperatures suit Mercedes, the warmer temperatures suit McLaren, and Red Bull are there trying to keep up with Ferrari. But we saw a dominant Max Verstappen in qualifying yesterday in the wet. Nobody could get near him, Joe. He was zero point 0.6 of a second down the road from everybody else. And it looked like we were back at the start of this season, didn't it?
But how come he didn't get pole then?
Because basically he has used his fifth ICE, the internal combustion engine, basically. And you're only allowed 4 a season. So every driver has 4 of these, and it's like 4 gearboxes, for this, for that. Okay. As soon as you use 5, you get a 10-place grid penalty for each of these items that you have to now go over your allocation. And we're starting to see that now with a number of drivers. So Max Verstappen has used his 5th engine, but he used it intentionally this weekend, because the next race is Zandvoort, is the Netherlands, is his home race, which I got to see him win in 2021. He then won it in 2022. He's then won it, and he wants to win it again. So if he uses up his 10-place grid penalty this weekend, he knows that he's done it, ready for the Dutch Grand Prix. So this weekend was damage limitation. So he qualified on pole position, absolute domination, and we saw Sergio Perez there as well. And Sergio was up there, qualified 3rd, started 2nd on the front row because Max had a 10-place grid penalty, which meant he started 11th behind Ocon and Albon and Alonso. Of the midfield teams, then, of course, there were the other 7 of the top 4 teams. So it was damage limitation, but we all expected Max to drive through everybody straight away and be in the lead after about 10 laps. But that didn't happen, Joe. That did not happen at all. We expected it, and with Perez on the front row and Red Bull looking so dominant, were we going to see the 8th driver of the top 4 teams win a race and see 8 different drivers in the first 13 races of the season? That could have happened. But no, we didn't. So all this expectation, basically, for the Belgian Grand Prix. I was on the golf course this morning, and my sat nav in Kent, and my sat nav said I was going to arrive home at 1:59. So everything was lined up, including my lunch in front of the TV when I got home. And I'm so glad I got home in time, because it was so entertaining right from the start. But Max didn't win.
Well, Max didn't win. No, and we saw, actually, it was kind of a relay race, because we saw, Ferrari were up there. Sainz was leading at one point. Then Piastri was leading. Maybe Leclerc early on as well. Hamilton was leading at the start. It was kind of, this could be anyone's. If you get that pit stop strategy right, then you were going to win this race. They were going between mediums and hards. I think hard was the preferred tire in the end. Most teams going for a 2-stop strategy. But there was one person in particular who didn't fancy a 2-stop strategy. Well, that was right, huh?
Absolutely right. So George Russell realised that when everybody started coming in for their first pit stops, he'd seen Carlos Sainz, who was the only front runner on hards. He stayed out longer and pitted on lap 22, which was the exact halfway point in the race. Now, I was expecting him to stay out a bit longer because he had to go onto mediums or softs because they're the regulations. You have to use
Mm.
two different tyre compounds. So surely, if you've done 22 laps on the hard compound, you're going to struggle to get 22 laps out of the medium compound. But this gave a load of information to George Russell, who basically, when everybody else was coming in for their second pit stop, he was on hards thinking, these tyres are feeling good. This track is feeling good. I think we can stretch this out. And he took the risk to basically do a one-stop strategy. Everybody else did a two-stop strategy, and that was what was expected. That's what all the telemetry was telling everybody before the race and all the engineers. A one-stop strategy was just not an option, apart from how the race evolved and how the track evolved, and the degradation of the tyres was less than everybody expected, probably because of the cooler temperatures, even though the sun was out. All these little fine details that add towards this. So anyway, George stayed out. Lewis looked like he had control of this race and was quite a long way up the road from George at one point. I think maybe 12 seconds, something like that. So Lewis goes in for his second pit stop, and then he makes his way back up to George Russell. And 3 laps from the end, he gets within DRS, and we all expect George just to move over and let Lewis through and basically use the DRS that Lewis would give him to stave off the oncoming Oscar Piastri, who has taken a massive step forward these last 2 or 3 races, having won last week in Hungary. And George was like, well, no, hold on a minute. This is my team now. I am the driver going into 2025
Yeah.
with Mercedes. Sorry, Lewis, you've had your time. You've had your day. Buddy, if you want to win this race, get past me. And good on Toto as well for letting them do that. It's the first time we've seen Mercedes really do that and not give Lewis preferential treatment. 7 times world champion. If he was in the world championship race, I think they would have done it. But
I think it was team orders. If he was, then it would have been team orders.
it would have been. But I do. But it wasn't. Toto's let them race. Neither of them are in the world championship, and we've already seen questionable stuff last week from McLaren not letting Lando through to close the gap on Max. But this week we've seen a brilliant driver decision to stay out on the hards. A one-stop strategy. He did 32 laps on those hard tyres.
Yeah.
Held off Lewis, held off Oscar. They finished all within about a second and a half of each other. It was a brilliant drive by George Russell, and he deserves that win.
He thoroughly deserved the win because he held them off. And he finished about half a second behind him. He was chasing him down. He had DRS, so many opportunities. Couldn't quite catch George. There was a radio message saying, look, give each other the space, be careful. Lewis, he wanted to do it, but he didn't want to mess up the chances because Piastri was catching him lap after lap after lap. And he was closing down that gap from, I think, 4.5 seconds down to about 1.5, less than 1.5, maybe 1.2 seconds. And so they were mindful. I think Lewis was mindful, look, let's not have a crash because we can get a 1-2 here. It's good for everybody. As you said, they're not really in the mix for the championship, I think. So it was an incredible race by George to keep his cool, keep calm and collected, and to take that win at the end. And he was so happy, he just could not believe it. I think is that his second win this season, or was that his first?
It's his second win because he won Austria. Do you remember when Max and Lando crashed in Austria just before the end? And
that was it. Yes, he nicked it
George
off.
was there.
Yes,
correct.
That's right. Yeah, so he was super happy, and we were so happy for him. I was certainly so happy.
Yeah,
but now this takes me back to Abu Dhabi when we were talking to the marshals and the scrutineers,
Yeah.
And if you want to learn more, then check out our episodes at Abu Dhabi last year when we were talking to scrutineers at the hotels. And what they do is they're part of the FIA, and they go around the cars and they'll do certain random checks post race, and some pre race as well. But post race, and they'll check maybe, I don't know, 3 or 4 random cars, and it will be something different. It could be, I don't know, wing mirrors, or it could be, length, or it could be this. Today it was weight, and so they chose. They must have chosen a few cars. Obviously, George Russell was one, and the big news is, well, they checked George Russell's car. What did they find, Darren?
Basically, they found it was underweight, and it's a black and white case. If your car is underweight of 798 kilos, I
That's
believe,
right. That's right.
you're disqualified. And George Russell has been disqualified from the Belgian Grand Prix and handed the win to his teammate, 7 times world champion Lewis Hamilton, who felt he deserved the win.
Well, Lewis would be happy with that, but what an awful way to lose a win. I mean, and we talked about this with the scrutineers. So just to be plain here, George was disqualified and he did not win, and everyone got shuffled up a place. So Lewis first, Piastri second, and Leclerc third.
Yes,
Is that
absolutely
right?
right. Yep.
So basically, George just didn't have to. He could have just boxed at the start and not have done that whole drive. It was kind of for nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't his fault, but it was the team's fault. Basically, they found the stewards. The car had not been fully drained of fuel, and when it was, the weight was just 796.5. So it was about 1.5 kilos underweight, which the team said was a genuine error. After all the effort he put in, absolutely
It,
sucks. What a sad
Joe,
way to end.
Joe, it was his best win for George Russell. It was his 3rd win. It was his best win. It was great driving. It was great decision making. It was absolutely brilliant strategy. He was looking like he was going to get 5th, probably 6th. This is what we want to see, the unpredictability, and it's been taken away from him. He was so ecstatic to have won that race. I was so ecstatic for him, to see the dominance of Red Bull and Max Verstappen be absolutely crushed by McLaren, by Mercedes. We've seen Ferrari win 2 races earlier in the season. I'm devastated that this is how Formula One ends up being at the end of the day. But I also understand
Mm.
that rules are rules, and the scrutineers have a really, really difficult, time consuming job. And we've discussed this on a previous podcast, Joe, that can we not just wait for the podium? Can we not give them an hour or something like that? And then, but,
That's what I want to do. Give him an hour, let them do it.
yeah,
But we've got TV cameras. That's the problem.
correct.
It's
Correct, and
oh.
people like us that just want to talk about it now and get on with it, and I found out because my son Harrison came running. He was ringing me. I was on a phone call. He was ringing me, and I'm like, go away. And then he came in and he shows me his phone and saw it disqualified. I was like, I'm gutted for Formula One. I'm gutted for Mercedes. I'm gutted for George. I'm gutted for Toto. Like even we've seen 2 races in the last 8 days. The most wonderful race in Hungary, and the most wonderful race in Belgium, and both wins have had a little undercurrent of,
Hollow.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, hollow. Hollow's the exact word, Joe. Thank you for that. They're hollow wins, and I don't want to feel that. I've been entertained off the charts. Not just these 2
Mm.
races. The British Grand Prix was phenomenal 3 weeks ago. Austria, like everything's been amazing now.
Yeah.
For at least 7
But
or 8
there's a
races.
solution. There's a solution. Do the scrutineering before the race. I mean, they've got all that time there. They've got F3, F2 races. They've got everything. Do all the scrutiny. Weigh the cars on the way onto the track. Have a look at the cars before they go on. Don't do it post race. I think it's ridiculous. Yes, there's rules. You don't want cheating. You don't want people pushing it too far. I get it. But like, how can you go through the whole palaver of the podiums and the photo, and that's the winner, and then, oh well, no, 2.5 hours later, he's not the winner anymore.
Well,
I still think it's stupid, because you're right. We're robbed as fans
yeah.
of an entertaining victory. It's like watching a football match and go, oh, they won the World Cup. Oh, actually, his he was wearing the wrong socks, and that's not allowed. So actually, the other team wins. You
It
can't
does
do it.
feel exactly like that. But the other thing to know is that after qualifying, these cars are put into parc ferme, where the teams
Mm.
can't touch them unless there's a specific reason, like they've lost a wing or something, something, something. So there are exceptions, but it has to go through real fine detail and permission and so on. So these cars qualify, they get put away. They've got 24 hours to look at them, and they would have known George's car was underweight compared to some others, or would they? Now, here's something for you. So,
Okay.
when they were weighing George's car, they weighed it again. They then spoke to Mercedes, and they have a certain time to then argue the case. And then they took the car in with Mercedes representatives. They weighed it again. And then they took the wheels off. They took the tyres off the car and weighed the tyres. Now, I'll tell you what this makes me think. This is the only race circuit where they don't do a parade lap, a winner's parade lap. They come across the
Yeah.
finish line,
Why?
around the turn, because of the length of the track. It's the longest track in Formula One history, and it's the blimmin' TV again, Joe, that say, "Oh no, can you just get on with it and don't do a parade lap." I love the parade lap. What a wonderful moment for every winner to get to wave to the
You
crowd that have all
tell
come along.
him. You
For the
tell him,
crowd,
Darren.
I know, for the crowd to get. I've got photos of Lewis winning at Silverstone this year, and video. This is what we want to see. It's part of the entertainment. Belgium get deprived of that every year. They just come straight in the pit exit and drive down the pit lane the wrong way and straight to the podium to get on with it. They've got 24 hours to sort this. Anyway, because they don't get to do that parade lap, they don't get to drive around and pick up all the marbles of the degraded tires, all the
Mm.
bits that fall off the tires. So they do a pickup on each tire. Now, if he was 1.5 kilograms underweight, it only takes zero point 0.4 of a kilogram of rubber on each tire of pickup
Mm.
to be the right weight. Now, we know that they
Mm.
weren't going to do this lap, but every other race you watch, they do a parade lap afterwards to wave to the crowd, and they're driving through all the marbles to make all that rubber stick on the tires to go and be weighed. 0.4 of a kilo per tire. It's nothing. I think had they had that, he'd have won that race.
1.5 kilos. Well, I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Well,
What's 0.4 of a kilo per tire of rubber? It's absolutely nothing.
it's nothing, and it's just such a rubbish way to lose. I feel so. I think a lot of people would share my my feelings about this, because again, it's the FIA who, I don't know, they get a lot of stick. I think I would give them a lot of stick too, because I don't know, it just seems all the interventions and all their rules seems to rob the drivers of victories. It seems to rob the viewer and the fan of entertainment.
Yeah.
Look, I'm happy for Piastri. Now he's second, and Leclerc got some points, so it's great for the
Uh,
McLaren campaign. That's the bright side of this. Lewis
yeah.
was the winner again. He would have loved to have been there on the podium, two in a row, but
Two
sorry,
out of
not two in
three.
a row, 2 out of 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It really grates me, and it's just shocking to see and to learn that, especially after watching the race. Um, but move on from that, and let's look at where we are in the standings. Then Max Verstappen is leading at 277 points. Second is Lando at 199. Charles Leclerc 177. Then you've got Piastri 167, Sainz 162, Hamilton 150. Now, if Hamilton was to get another win, could potentially propel him to fourth. I kind of think, I mean, what's that? 78 points between Verstappen and Norris.
Mhm.
I don't know. You could see, well, certainly a battle for second. If Verstappen doesn't keep his performance up for the rest of the second half of the season, we could see a really interesting second half of this season.
Well,
Obviously, the McLaren upgrades did so well. they weren't quite there. Lando didn't have a great race, I thought, this race.
Mate, he hit the gravel on coming out of the exit of turn one, and he dropped three
Mm,
places. And because the overtake wasn't as simple this year, the DRS zone after Eau Rouge blah, 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 I can't think of the name of the corner. So after Eau Rouge, that DRS down that straight has been reduced. So therefore, the overtake isn't as. So I think it's harder to overtake people today. So Norris fell foul of that first lap error, dropped back 3 places, and he just got stuck in a DRS train, and it never worked out for him. I felt
mm,
really sorry for him, but ultimately, finishing second and fifth, still not a disaster. They've closed the gap on Red Bull because it's still a one-driver team.
mm,
Perez started on the front row and could have won this race today, and Perez finished a net 7th once Russell had been
mm.
disqualified. He finished last of the top 4 team drivers again. Is
Yeah.
this, I think to myself, what is going on here? Every time now, he's just not delivering. And today he had a chance and he failed.
Mm.
But because of George's disqualification, he popped in 10th place. Daniel Ricciardo.
He got a point.
Oh, he got a
Hey.
point. Are we going to see Danny Rick in a Red Bull this season? Mate, I think Perez has just not done enough. And they're paying Perez, they're paying Ricciardo, they're paying Tsunoda, they're paying Lawson, and they're paying Verstappen. Of course, they've got 5 drivers on their roster. They're still going to pay Perez even if he doesn't drive, because they'll just put Lawson in something. Their payroll isn't going to change. They've got a unique opportunity where they've got all these drivers, all these seats. Just do something different even if it's for a couple of races. And if it doesn't change it, put Perez back in. Point is, they are going to lose this drivers' championship to McLaren or Mercedes, because McLaren and Mercedes are just the faster cars now. If Lando scores 7 points more than Max, which is the difference between first and second, so Lando wins every race and Max finishes second, in the last 11 races, that's 77 points.
Mm.
And the gap is 78. That's 1 point, and that's a fastest lap. That's how close this
Yes.
championship is right now. I'm
Yeah, but
afraid.
that's
Go on.
sorry.
Go
That
on.
that well that is based on well, that's that gap, but it's based on Max not performing as well. You know, I mean,
Max should be finishing 5th right now behind the 2 McLarens and the 2 Mercedes. That's what Max has got to go for right now. His car is not fast enough. He's been beaten by 2 Mercedes really today, one disqualified, by a McLaren and by a Ferrari, but he did have the 10th place grid penalty, to be fair.
yes, and someone who had a bigger grid penalty was Yuki Tsunoda,
Correct.
because he upgraded his engine power units. I mean, he had the whole hog. It looked like he went down to QuickFit and got the full service package. And he, because he had so much done, and they managed to upset him so much in the QuickFit reception office, he actually got a 60 place grid penalty. That's not. Is that cumulative, or is that just on Belgium?
It's purely on Belgium because it's his 5th engine, it's his 5th gearbox, it's his 5th name of the team. I don't know how many things there are other than QuickFit don't sponsor the team, but I don't think anyway. I'd have to check that now. But basically, yes, whatever all the new components of the car that he had this weekend led to a 60 place grid penalty. He's just using them up basically all in one go. Seems a little bit unfair, those who have to replace them gradually across the season. But
Yes.
again, you play to the rules and people stretch the rules. I think the rules are there not to read what's in the rules, it's to read what isn't in the rules, and you make that happen. and that's what Formula One's
Mm.
always been brilliant at. And then the rules get rewritten, and those gaps in the rules get smaller and smaller every year. I guess that's
Yeah,
just life, isn't it?
and
Really?
that's where the innovation is, isn't it? That's the grey areas, and
Yeah.
that's the room that they can exploit back in the factory, and go. Actually, we can get a little bit more out of it here. But look, a great performance by Mercedes. They really are back. Them and McLaren are absolutely singing at the moment. I can't wait for the next race, which is Zandvoort, which is after the summer break. We've got 3 weeks now until that. So the
I
drivers
think
can
it's
rest.
4.
Is it 4?
I think it's 4
Eh,
3 weekends off, 4 weeks in total.
Okay, cool. So the end of August.
Mm.
And yeah, so we're going to have a summer break actually here on Racehouse, because we've been doing the full season, and Zandvoort will be our 1 year anniversary, Darren.
It will. You're absolutely right, Joe. We're gonna have to get the party poppers and the fireworks out, however we do that
Yeah.
on this.
I'm not going to do a thumbs up yet. I'm going to save that for Zandvoort. And yeah, maybe we should get a cake or something. We'll look into that. Do you have any shout outs at all? Because I do have one.
I do have a shout out, Joe. So let's do both
Go
of
for
them.
it.
So my one on Friday this week, I got invited to a company to be in a look around and so on called Butzer Rubber, based in Hampshire. And the reason I got invited is because the CEO of the company, a guy called Charles Easton, he plays badminton with my father-in-law. And after the game the other day, when my father-in-law got beaten, he said, "Oh, look at this in my car," and he pulls out Lewis Hamilton's steering wheel from the European Grand Prix 2008, where in Q3 he crashed really heavily into the barriers. And he said, "This is the steering wheel from that." And my father-in-law was like, "Oh, my son-in-law Darren would absolutely love this. You should meet him." But it basically turns out that this company, based near where I live in Hampshire, make all the rubber bits that go around the edge. They make lots and lots of other components, like rubber things that go around screws and just make them really smooth, and just various things
Sure.
all made of rubber. And they have components on every single Formula One car on the grid. And the guy showed me all around his workshops, warehouses. It was a phenomenal operation, running to absolute Formula One quality standard. And
Wow.
mate, it blew me away. And they make tires as well. He had a mock tire. I don't know if they supply Pirelli or not. I never got to the end of that. But I have to say, a shout out to Charles Easton. Thank you so much for taking me around your operation and showing me your Formula One standard of rubber. It's just
Yeah.
bizarre, isn't it? But
The Formula
but
One
it was
standard of
brilliant.
rubber. That's awesome. And if you
Yeah,
want to donate that steering wheel to Darren, then please feel free.
I'd love
Um,
it to be on my memorabilia shelf.
well, I have a shout out to my friend Anna, and Anna is a new subscriber, and she follows quite a few of the F1 podcasts, actually, Fast and Curious with Greg James
I love
and
it.
co. And a couple of the others. And now she's subscribed to Racehouse. So she's promised to thin out some of the podcasts that she's listening to. But she sent me a message saying that I guess you're enjoying recent McLaren success and that the upgrades are taking the fight to Red Bull. Well, we certainly are as McLaren heads. I know you certainly are enjoying that, aren't you?
Oh yeah, for absolute certain. You know, I'm not just a McLaren head. I'm a Formula One head that and follow the Brit drivers, the British teams. But I have looked around the McLaren garage, so I do feel a factory. Sorry, so I do feel a certain affinity with them for sure. But I'm just as happy with Mercedes and just as happy with Williams and Aston Martin.
Aston Martin too. And we didn't talk, but maybe you got this prediction right, Darren. And we have to doff our caps because Jeremy Clarkson has said, by the way, thank you, Anna, for subscribing. Jeremy Clarkson apparently has said that Adrian Newey is house hunting in Oxfordshire,
Well,
not Maranello.
you know,
He's off to Alpine.
my
Alpine.
I don't think he's off to Enstone, mate. No,
No.
I've had this instinct for a long time that Lawrence Stroll will get his man, and he usually does. But Silverstone now, you just look at it and it's phenomenal. And with Eddie
Silverstone, yeah.
George Jordan, our friend Eddie Jordan, Joe, from Monaco, and so on. He's been negotiating for Adrian Newey. He is now his official manager. Got him out of the Ferrari contract. He's got him ready, lined up. I'm absolutely certain we're going to see him in
The Red Bull contract.
British Racing Green. Yeah, he's going to go back to Red Bull. You reckon that's what's going to happen? So
Well, no, you said you got him out the Ferrari contract, but I don't think there was a Ferrari.
Ah,
Well, Ferrari
no.
offered him.
I've done it again.
Yeah,
Joe. Ferrari
fake
offered
news.
him an yeah. Oh my word. Ferrari
Well,
offered him
there
a
was
contract,
word.
but
Yeah, sorry, there was word that Ferrari obviously wanted him, and I think Lewis wanted him too. But Newey wanted to take so many staff and mechanics with him to Ferrari. I think Ferrari might have felt, well, we're going to lose a lot of our culture, and we're going to lose a lot of. It's going to be kind of an inside job. We're going to have to give up so much control, and at the end of the day, we are Ferrari. Maybe that's what it was. However, Lawrence Stroll. I was getting mixed up. Can't they have two different names? Well, they do, but it's two L's.
they do.
Why? Yeah, Lawrence will be like, I still want my kid to be the best. I want the team to be the best. It looks good on our retail auto sales. I think so too. And you called this.
Yeah.
A few episodes ago. You
Yeah.
think he was going there? I think he is too.
Yeah, I'm certain of this, and we just need time to tell. I was actually listening to Eddie Jordan talk this week because David Coulthard does a podcast with him, and Coulthard was really pushing him on this, and they were joking that actually what they're trying to do is get Red Bull to bring him back on much better contract than what he was on. But I think with all the dynamic at Red Bull and the controversy at the moment, that's never going to happen all the time. Helmut Marko's there. Watch this space. Let's see what happens. I think we might know before we even have another race.
Well, we'll see what happens, and we'll get ready for the next half of the Formula One season 2024, when we'll be back with Zandvoort, the Dutch Grand Prix. It's a fantastic one. Darren's been there. A few of our friends have been there too. We'll give you a big old preview and review nearer the time. But from now, it's bye from me, Joe Lee.
And it's goodbye from me, Darren Reeves. Take care.
Take care.